You're listening to C103's Cork Today podcast. Phone and text lines are currently closed.
Now, as we've mentioned before on our monthly Citizens Information slot, the Office of the Ombudsman has been running a complaints clinic here in Cork once a month. It allows local people to directly interact with the Ombudsman staff. Well, some good news for 2025 because the staff are now going to be available for a full day rather than a half day per month. And to find out more, Ger Deering, who is the Ombudsman, joins me this morning. Good morning to you, Ger.
Good morning, Patricia.
And you're welcome to the programme. Is this move down to the response that you have been getting here in Cork, Ger, to increase it from a half day to a full day?
Yes, it is, Patricia. We've had very good attendance at these clinics, and we're very pleased to be able to meet people face to face, because one of the things we find when we deal with complaints from the public generally is their inability to access, say, public services sometimes. So as the people who deal with complaints, we feel we should be accessible ourselves. And for that reason, we're anxious to make it as easy as we possibly can. So we deal with people on the phone. And indeed, you probably know yourself from people you deal with that it can be difficult sometimes to get people on the phone and even to find a phone number. So we will talk to people on the phone. We are very happy if people contact us online, but we're also very happy to meet people face to face, because sometimes that's an easier way for somebody to actually explain if they're having a difficulty or a problem with the public service.
Yeah, and I think as well, people like to sit across the desk from somebody and say, look, this is what's going on. How can you help me? Not everybody is that comfortable with doing things online or over the phone.
Oh, that's absolutely true. And also it helps us to maybe ask additional questions to understand better what the issue is or the difficulty that the person is having with the public body. But I just want to remind people as well, please, Patricia, that they should complain firstly to the public body concerned. So if they're having a difficulty with a service or with a person in a public body, it's important that they go back there first and give that body an opportunity. And to be fair, a lot of public bodies do resolve the complaints themselves before we have to get involved.
Yeah, just remind listeners of the role of the Ombudsman, Ger.
Yeah, what we do is we deal with complaints from individuals against public bodies, and that's a whole range of public bodies. It can be in the health service, it can be the local authority, it can be a government department, and it even actually extends to nursing homes, because many nursing homes or people residing in nursing homes are funded through the public purse. So we can actually deal with and in fact, there was one case I remember we dealt with in a nursing home where a person had come from hospital. It was expected that they would only be short term in the nursing home, but it extended to a longer term stay. Nobody spoke to the man when he went in or his family as regards the charges or what it was going to cost. The family presumed that it was being paid from the public purse, but in fact it wasn't. And they were presented after a number of months with a bill for €32,000. Yes,
wow.
And the nursing home sought to recover that money from the family. We got involved, and after some time dealing with the nursing home, they actually agreed to write it off on the basis that it was not fair to pursue it. And indeed, it wasn't even possible to pursue it in circumstances where the family hadn't been informed before they went in that there would actually be a charge.
And in a case like that, if the person is in the nursing home, might be unwell or might be very vulnerable, can the family take up that case?
They can indeed, yes. We take complaints directly from people, but also we will take complaints from an individual acting on behalf of somebody. Now, we will normally ask for the consent of the person on whose behalf they're complaining, or maybe if the person themselves is not in a position to give that consent, we'll just need to know that the person has an entitlement to make the complaint. But certainly the vast majority of complainants deal directly with us, but we are happy where they want another family member or somebody like that to represent them in the complaint.
And what bodies were where did the most common complaints from, especially here in Cork?
Well, last year across the country, in fact, the most complaints came from public bodies such as the Department of Social Welfare, the HSE, and the local authorities. Probably not surprising when you think of the number of transactions. I know that, for example, Social Protection deal with something like 80-something million transactions in a year, which is quite extraordinary. And when you think of the work they do, And yet there are mistakes. For example, we've come across situations, one that comes to mind is where a gentleman went in, contacted social protection in relation to a contributory old age pension he believed he was entitled to when he was 66. Whatever interaction happened, he came away thinking that, in fact, he wasn't entitled to it. When he reached the age of 70, he again made inquiries and discovered that he actually was in fact entitled to it. Now, at the time, social protection granted him the pension and said they would backdate it 6 months. We thought that was unreasonable, that in fact, he had made efforts to get that pension when he was 66, so the money was repaid. I think in that case it amounted to about 47,000. He was repaid over those number of years. So
that's a nice little win for that man.
Yes, and I'd stress though, Patricia, that it's not always all about money.
Okay.
Because we also look at it through a human rights lens, and sometimes it's how was the person treated, were they treated with respect and dignity. So we do look at whether they got the service they were entitled to, but we also have to look at how were they treated when they were dealing with the public body as well. And sometimes actually all a person is looking for is an explanation of what happened, or maybe an apology for what happened.
Yeah, I mean, you can deal with cases under the HSE. What would a standard case with the HSE be like?
Well, again, they vary quite significantly. Last year we had a situation where some of those, as you can imagine, are very serious and emotive, but a person had a transplant, and apparently when you've had a transplant, you're more susceptible to having cancer afterwards. So this person was referred by one consultant to an oncologist for a checkup. The consultant it was in St. Vincent's Hospital in Dublin. The consultant actually wrote to the other consultant, but the letter didn't appear to turn up. When the patient went back for her checkup, it was discovered that this mistake had happened. It actually, I think, happened again. Eventually, when we got involved, the person got the referral, and unfortunately they did actually have cancer, which had to be treated. But we dealt with the hospital. What that person wanted was for this not to happen to somebody else, and she was anxious that we would look at the system. We looked at the system. Initially, the hospital said they would improve the printing system and the distribution of letters throughout the hospital, and we said we didn't think that was a solution, so we got them to implement an actual electronic system, which now means that the referrals within the hospital go electronically and are checked on a daily basis. So that just shows you the benefit, not just of the work that we do in individual complaints, but how it can benefit others. Others, and in fact, the future, we do own initiative investigations. We've done a lot of work in areas like treatment abroad, where we found that people were having difficulty getting repaid for money they had spent on treatment abroad under a number of schemes. We made recommendations to the HSE. They've actually implemented all of those recommendations, and those schemes are now being implemented much better, and people find it much easier to get reimbursed after they've had that treatment.
And what about our two local authorities, Cork County Council, Cork City Council? Do you do investigations there? We do take complaints.
We deal with, yes, we do, and they're quite similar, I suppose, to many of the local authorities throughout the country. We certainly receive complaints in relation to things like housing, planning enforcement, and those are the main areas we receive with local authorities. But there can be other. We're receiving complaints lately about there are schemes where people can get grants for, say, homes that are being refurbished, schemes where a house has been vacant for a number of years, and there's a scheme that actually allows people to refurbish those and bring them back into homes as homes for people. So those are it's areas like that we receive complaints. But it really is any interaction that you would have with your local authority or with a public body we can look at.
Okay, but you say what the person needs to do first is you interact firstly with the public body, and it's at that point, if you feel you haven't got satisfaction or you're not being listened to, it's then you can reach out to your staff.
Exactly. So if they get a response to a complaint that they're unhappy with, they can come to us. But equally, if they don't receive a response, of course, to a complaint from a public body, they can come to us as well.
Okay, so you are coming to Cork once a month. Have you a timeline of when you'll next be in Cork?
That's right. I think then our next is actually next week after Patrick's Day, March the 18th. And then we'll be there on April the 15th, May the 20th, and June the 17th. So
it's the third. It's the third Tuesday of the month. Isn't that how is the easiest way for people to
That's the easiest way
remember?
For people to remember the third.
And can people simply turn up, or do you suggest making an appointment at the office?
People can turn up, but if they want to be sure, they could contact us in advance and make an appointment for sure, if they would like to do that, by all means.
Okay, and it's the Citizens Information Centre, it's the one in the city on Cornmarket Street in the city. And bring as much information with you as possible?
Absolutely, it's very helpful, and people probably will have received a letter or some correspondence from the body that they're complaining about. So the more that they bring and the more they can give us, the easier it is for us to understand what has happened and to be able to tell the person what we might be able to do. And then when we make contact with the public body, if we have that information, it helps us to actually get a response from them. And I should say as well that the vast majority of the complaints, Patricia, we resolve them informally. It's only a certain number of complaints we have to go on to formal investigation, and if we can, so they will usually be resolved very quickly. In fact, 80% of our complaints are completed within 3 months and 92% within 6 months. So it's not a lengthy process, and we try to make it as easy and as pain-free as we can for people. Well done.
You do, listen, you do incredible work. And for people who don't want to go along or can't go along to your complaints clinic, the website is one way, isn't it, that people can make a complaint to ombudsman.ie?
.ie, exactly. They can contact us on ombudsman.ie, or they can call us on 01 639 5600. But as you say, the website, for most people, the website is the easiest way, ombudsman.ie, and there's a lot of information on there on how to make a complaint, and there's even a complaint form that will help somebody to submit their complaint. Okay, well done. You make it as easy as possible for people. But the next Cork complaint clinic is Tuesday, this day week, the 18th of March. Do you run clinics? Is it just Cork, or do you run other clinics around the country? We do run other clinics around the country. Cork, yes, we do. Cork is a main one, and it's one of our busiest. But we do other clinics as well. And something else that I've been doing, Patricia, is I'm involved with the public participation networks in each of the counties, and I have visited and met with. These are the networks of voluntary bodies in each of the counties, and we're very happy to interact with public participation networks, because what we end up there are people who become champions, if you like, who they're very involved in their communities. They're assisting people on a daily basis, and when they know about our service, it means if somebody comes to them, they're able to refer somebody to us as well. Well done. They're the real unsung heroes in our community, all those volunteers. Listen, Ger, pleasure speaking with you. Thank you for that, and thanks for joining us. Thanks very much, Patricia. Good morning to you. Bye-bye. That is the Ombudsman. That is Ger Deering.